My name is Khalid. I was 27 years old when everything in my life began to fall apart. The events of this story began on March 14, 2019. On that day, something small but dangerous happened. I was seen doing something forbidden, something that, in my country, was not just a mistake, but a serious crime. From that moment, fear entered my life and never left. What followed was a chain of suffering, punishment, and silence that I never imagined I would face simply because of belief. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. My identity was clear from the day I was born. I was known as a Muslim, not because I chose it, but because it was expected. Faith was not a personal journey in my world. It was law, culture, and survival combined. From childhood, I learned what to say, how to pray, when to bow, and when to remain silent. Questions were not welcome. Curiosity was dangerous. My family was well known in our community. We were respected, feared, and watched. My father worked closely with local authorities and religious leaders. He believed strongly in tradition and obedience. He raised us with strict discipline. He showed me through actions that honor was more important than feelings, and reputation mattered more than life itself. My mother lived quietly. She obeyed my father and taught us children to do the same. She showed love through service, not words. She never questioned rules, and she warned us often that shame could destroy a family faster than death. Education was important in my home. I attended religious schools where I memorized texts I did not fully understand. I learned rules before I learned kindness. At university, I studied administration and public service. I was trained to lead, to speak carefully, and to never expose weakness. Outwardly, my life looked successful and stable, but inside, my life was controlled by fear. Every day followed the same pattern. I woke early for prayer. I spoke the right words in public. I avoided forbidden topics. I watched my behavior closely because neighbors watched even more closely. Cameras, informants, and religious patrols were part of daily life. One wrong move could destroy everything. Punishment was not always loud. Sometimes it came quietly. I saw people disappear. I saw families broken overnight. I saw men arrested and never return. I saw fear in the eyes of those who dared to think differently. These were lessons taught without words. This was the world that shaped me. At this stage of my life, I had not yet been arrested. I had not yet been beaten, but the pressure was already heavy. The silence was already painful. The persecution had already begun, not with chains, but with control. Control of thought, control of speech, control of the heart. And without knowing it, I was already walking toward a moment that would cost me everything. By the time this chapter began, my heart was already restless. I still lived my normal life on the outside, but inside I was changing in ways I did not yet understand. I went to work, I greeted neighbors, I prayed in public, but something deep inside me felt empty, like I was repeating actions without meaning. It started quietly, almost harmlessly. One evening, during a power cut, I sat alone in my room. The city was silent. No call to prayer echoed that night. The darkness felt heavy, but also peaceful. In that silence, I remembered something a foreign worker once hinted to me months earlier. He spoke carefully, looking around before sharing anything. He told me there was another way to understand God, one built on love instead of fear. He did not explain much. He only planted a thought. That thought grew. Days later, I searched quietly on my phone. I erased my history again and again. I used hidden folders. My hands shook every time I tapped the screen. I knew this was dangerous. I knew people were punished for far less. Still, something pulled me forward. The first time I saw the Bible, it felt unreal. I did not hold it yet. I only saw it on a screen. I read slowly, afraid even the walls could see me. The words felt different. They felt gentle. They spoke about love, forgiveness, and sacrifice. No threats, no commands to harm, no fear. I felt warmth and terror at the same time. From that moment, my life split in two. There was the life everyone saw and the life I hid. I woke each morning pretending nothing had changed, but at night, when the city slept, I read more. I learned quietly. I listened to stories of people who chose faith and paid a heavy price. I never thought I would become one of them. Persecution did not come all at once. It came in stages. First came suspicion. My father began watching me more closely. He noticed I spent time alone. He saw how quiet I had become. One evening he sat across from me and studied my face for a long time. He did not accuse me, but he warned me. He showed me stories of people who lost everything because they strayed. He reminded me of honor, family name, and shame. I understood his message clearly. Soon after, my phone was checked without warning. My room was searched when I was away. I learned this from small changes. Objects moved, drawers slightly open, the air in the room feeling disturbed. Fear followed me everywhere. My heart raced even when nothing happened. Then came isolation. Friends stopped visiting. Calls went unanswered. At work, conversations ended when I approached. I noticed how people looked at me, not with anger, but with caution. Someone had spoken. Someone suspected. In my country, suspicion alone could destroy a life. One night, religious officers came to our house. They did not shout. They spoke calmly, which made it worse. They asked questions while watching my reactions. They mentioned forbidden beliefs and foreign ideas. They described punishments slowly, as if teaching a lesson. I stood frozen. My father answered for me. He defended me, but his voice carried fear. After they left, my father confronted me privately. He did not hit me. He did something worse. He told me I was bringing death into our home. He revealed that if I continued on this path, he would be forced to choose the family's survival over my life. His eyes were not angry, they were broken. That night, I cried silently into my pillow. The persecution grew heavier. I was reported to local authorities for questioning. I was taken into a small room with bright lights and no windows. Men sat across from me and studied every movement I made. They asked about my beliefs, my habits, my thoughts. I answered carefully. I denied what I could. I stayed calm on the outside while my body trembled inside. They showed me videos of punishments. They revealed stories of people who disappeared. They explained how accidents happened to those who refused to return to the right path. They did not touch me yet, but their words were weapons. When I was released, I was warned. At home, my family treated me like a stranger. My mother avoided my eyes. My siblings kept their distance. Meals were silent. Love was replaced with fear. I felt alone even when surrounded by people. My Bible reading stopped being a quiet moment of peace and became an act of survival. I hid it deeper. I prayed silently, without moving my lips. I learned to listen for footsteps before opening anything. Sleep became difficult. Every sound felt like danger. Then came the breaking point. One afternoon, I was taken again. This time, the room was colder. My hands were restrained. They accused me openly. They revealed that someone had seen me reading forbidden material. They demanded I confess and return fully to the accepted faith. They promised mercy if I obeyed. I could not. I did not argue. I did not preach. I simply refused to deny what had already changed my heart. That refusal cost me dearly. I was held for days without knowing the time. The lights never went off. I was deprived of sleep. Food was limited. I was mocked, threatened, and humiliated. They told me my family would suffer because of me. They showed me documents that listed possible punishments, including death. My body weakened, my spirit felt crushed. At times, I wondered if I had made a mistake. At other times, I felt a strange peace that made no sense in that place. Eventually, I was released again, but this time with conditions. I was monitored. My movements were restricted. My future was uncertain. My family was warned to watch me closely. I was no longer free, even outside prison walls. This was persecution. Not just pain, but pressure. Not just violence, but fear. A slow, crushing weight meant to force obedience. By the end of this chapter of my life, I understood something clearly. Choosing faith did not bring me safety. It brought me suffering, but it also gave me a truth I could not unsee. And I knew the worst was still ahead. They showed me images of people who suffered worse than me. They revealed what happened to those who refused to return. They described families torn apart, children left without fathers, mothers left without sons. They wanted guilt to crush me. They also brought my family into it. I was told that my father's position was at risk. They explained how my actions had already damaged his reputation. They revealed that my siblings would face consequences in school, work, and marriage. They wanted me to feel responsible for every tear that would follow. That knowledge hurt more than the physical pain. In moments of weakness, I questioned myself. I wondered if silence would have been easier. I wondered if obedience would have spared everyone else. But even in those moments, something inside me remained steady. I could not deny what I believed, even if it cost me everything. Eventually, I was brought before a formal panel. This was not a courtroom like in movies. It was quiet and controlled. The decision felt predetermined. Evidence was presented. Reports were read. My future was discussed as if I were not there. I learned then that my life no longer belonged to me. They explained the charge clearly: apostasy, a word heavy with consequences, a word that carried punishment far beyond prison walls. I was told that execution was a possible outcome. Hearing that word felt unreal. It did not sound like it belonged to my life. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I thought of my childhood. I thought of my mother's hands. I thought of simple moments I had taken for granted. I was returned to my cell to wait. Waiting became torture. Every sound outside my door made my heart race. Every set of footsteps felt final. I imagined countless endings. Sleep came only in short, restless moments. Dreams turned into nightmares. I woke up shaking, unsure if I was still alive. During this time, my family was allowed limited contact. When I saw my father, he looked older. His shoulders were bent. He did not scold me. He did not plead. He simply looked at me with pain. He revealed that he had tried to protect me but had failed. He showed me through his silence that he was torn between love and fear. My mother cried quietly. She did not speak much. Her tears said everything. She showed me love in the only way she could, through her suffering. That was the hardest part of persecution, Not the cell, not the threats, but knowing my choice had brought pain to those I loved. Days turned into weeks. Weeks felt like years. Then something unexpected happened. My sentence was delayed. Not removed, but delayed. I was told there were complications, international attention, and internal concerns. I was not freed, but I was not executed either. I was transferred to another facility under strict watch. This uncertainty was its own form of punishment. I lived every day not knowing if it would be my last. I learned what it meant to exist without control. My body survived, but my life was suspended. By the end of this chapter, I was no longer the man I once was. Fear had stripped away everything false. Suffering had reshaped my understanding of freedom. I realized that persecution is not only about pain, it is about being forced to choose between truth and survival. And I had chosen. What remained was the cost. By the time this chapter began, I was no longer sure what freedom meant. I was alive, but my life was not my own. Every day started the same way. I woke up in a guarded place, checked by eyes that never trusted me. I moved only when allowed. I spoke only when asked. Even my thoughts felt watched. One morning, an officer came to see me. He did not look angry. He looked tired. He revealed to me that my case had become complicated. He showed me papers without letting me touch them. He explained that my execution had not been canceled, only postponed. He made it clear that my life could end suddenly if attention faded. That knowledge followed me everywhere. I was transferred again, this time to a place that felt less like a prison and more like a cage hidden in plain sight. I was allowed short walks under watch. I saw the sky but could not reach it. I felt the sun but could not enjoy it. Freedom was close enough to see, but too far to touch. My body carried marks of what I had been through. My wrists hurt from restraints. My back ached from cold floors. My sleep was broken by memories of interrogation rooms and silent threats. Loud sounds made me flinch. Quiet moments made my thoughts race. The persecution did not stop just because I was no longer beaten or questioned every day. It changed shape. I was watched constantly. I was followed when I moved. My phone was monitored. People around me were questioned about me. Friends disappeared from my life. Some avoided me out of fear. Others were warned to stay away. Isolation became my new punishment. My family suffered deeply. My father lost his position. He became quieter, smaller, as if shame had pressed him down. He showed me through his actions that my choice had cost him everything he worked for. He did not say it with words, but I saw it in his eyes and slow steps. My mother grew weaker. She worried constantly. She checked doors and windows again and again. She feared that soldiers would return for me, or that neighbors would report us. She lived in fear because of me. My siblings paid a price too. They were treated differently at school and work. Doors closed for them. They were judged because of my decision. This hurt me more than prison walls ever could. One night, a man I had never met came to see me secretly. He arrived late when the streets were quiet. He revealed to me that there was a narrow chance to escape the country. He explained that it would mean leaving everything behind. He showed me the risks clearly. Capture would mean death. Success would mean exile forever. I spent that night awake. I thought about my childhood. I thought about my family's home. I thought about the land where I was born. I knew that if I left, I might never see them again. I also knew that if I stayed, my life would end sooner or later. This was not an easy choice. It was a painful one. Days later, arrangements were made quietly. I moved like a shadow. I avoided cameras. I followed instructions exactly. Fear stayed with me every step. My heart beat so hard I thought others could hear it. The journey was long and dangerous. There were moments when I hid in small spaces, barely breathing. There were moments when vehicles stopped suddenly and I prepared myself to be taken. There were moments when I wanted to turn back because the fear felt unbearable. But something pushed me forward. When I finally crossed the border, my legs almost gave out. I did not celebrate. I did not smile. I felt empty, shocked, and exhausted. I was alive, but I had lost everything familiar. Freedom came with a cost. In the new place, I was safe, but not healed. I woke up from nightmares soaked in sweat. I jumped at knocks on doors. I avoided crowds. I felt guilt for leaving my family behind. I wondered if my survival was worth their suffering. Persecution does not end when chains are removed. It follows the mind. It lingers in the heart. It changes how you see the world. Yet, in that broken place, faith remained. I prayed quietly. I read when it was safe. I learned to trust slowly. I learned that faith does not always rescue us from pain, but it gives us strength to endure it. I learned that truth can cost everything, but it also gives meaning to suffering. Today, I live with scars, both seen and unseen. I live with memories that still hurt. I live with a longing for home that may never be fulfilled. But I also live with purpose. My story is not shared for attention. It is shared for those who cannot speak, for those in cells tonight, for those beaten in secret, for those rejected by their families, for those who choose faith and pay with their freedom. This is the cost of freedom. If you are reading or watching this, I ask you to pause for a moment. Please pray for Christians and believers around the world who are persecuted for their faith. Pray for those in prisons, for those hiding, for those whose families have turned against them. Pray for strength, protection, and hope where fear tries to rule. And if you feel in your heart a desire to turn away from sin and turn toward God, you can do so right now, simply and honestly. You can pray in this way. Ask God to forgive your sins. Tell Him you believe in Jesus and what He did. Ask Him to come into your life and guide you. Choose to follow Him from this day forward. God sees the heart. He hears sincere prayer. May this story remind you that faith is precious, freedom is costly, and love is worth everything.